High in the Alps, where the air thins and the last trees give up, a skeleton falls out of a clear sky. It tumbles, white against the blue, and shatters on the rocks below. For a moment, nothing moves. Then a shadow crosses the snow, a massive bird, 10 feet from wingtip to wingtip, with a chest colored like dried blood. It folds out of the wind, lands among splinters, and begins, calmly, to eat the bones. For 1,000 years, humanity looked up at this creature and saw a nightmare. In Spanish, they called it the quebrantahuesos, the bone breaker. Across the high passes of Europe, it was the most feared face in the mountains. This animal survives entirely on the skeletons of the dead. But why it paints itself the color of blood remained a mystery fueling centuries of terror. The bearded vulture lived under the weight of a continent's slander. In German, they called it the Lammergeier, the lamb killer. Shepherds swore the bird carried off livestock in its sharp talons, while others believed it was capable of carrying off children. That fear reaches back 25 centuries to the ancient world. Legend claims the Greek playwright Aeschylus died when a bearded vulture dropped a tortoise onto his bald head, mistaking his scalp for a smooth white stone. Generations of shepherds and hunters responded to these stories with guns and poison, determined to wipe the bird from the alpine sky. By 1913, the campaign succeeded. The last bearded vulture in the Alps was shot dead in Italy, leaving the mountains silent. Yet, throughout all those centuries of coordinated human eradication, the bird had never actually killed a lamb or a child. It never killed any living thing at all. We wiped out an entire population based on a nightmare, erasing a specialist we never understood. The vulture's true nature is found in the chronology of decay. While griffins and condors squabble over the soft parts of the carcass, the bearded vulture waits. It circles the thermals until the others have stripped the body down to the highly mineralized, seemingly indigestible skeleton. This chart shows how the bearded vulture occupies a niche no other vertebrate on Earth has claimed. Up to 90% of its lifelong diet consists exclusively of bone. Processing that diet requires extreme internal anatomy. It begins with an esophagus so elastic it can swallow a bone the length of a human forearm entirely whole, ribs and vertebrae vanishing unbroken into the dark. The stomach contains the real secret, a pool of acid with a pH near 0, among the most acidic digestive fluids in the living world. Within 24 hours, that acid dissolves the solid calcium matrix, breaking down minerals to access the rich marrow trapped inside. This animal functions as a literal biological furnace, engineered to retrieve vital nutrients that every other scavenger is forced to leave behind. Some bones are simply too large, even for an elastic throat. Heavy joints and thigh bones require a different approach. In those cases, the vulture carries the skeleton aloft. It climbs 50 meters or more, using the mountain air to lift the weight high. It releases the bone over specific ancestral rock slabs known as ossuaries. The bone strikes the stone and bursts apart, opening the marrow. Mastering the physics of the drop takes years. A juvenile bird spends up to 7 years of its adolescence learning the correct height, the right angle, and the patience to circle back when the heavy bone refuses to break. The bone breaker is a careful, rare specialist that spends its youth learning to process the dead. There is one final trait that contributed to the bird's terrifying reputation: the deep, rusty, blood-red color of its head and chest. That red is not biological. Naturally, the bird is pale white and gray. It deliberately seeks out hidden mountain springs, rich in iron oxide mud, and bathes in them, rubbing the pigment into its plumage until it glows. Scientists once assumed this was a medicinal behavior designed to kill bacteria. However, laboratory tests proved that iron-rich mud has no antibacterial effect at all. The stain serves as a complex visual language of dominance and territory. The oldest birds and the most dominant females wear the deepest red, signaling their experience and status in a wild, wordless language. human ancestors reached for the exact same red iron oxide tens of thousands of years ago, using it to mark cave walls and signal meaning. When a vulture rises from a rusty spring stained the color of fire, it is wearing a crown of experience. This terrifying blood is actually a social signal used to communicate standing in the high country. We eradicated this intelligent, harmless specialist because we were afraid of its appearance. Without the bone breaker, a landscape loses its ability to recycle skeletons. The nutrients remain locked away, and the ecosystem chokes on its own remains. In 1978, conservationists began releasing captive-bred vultures back into the Alps. It was a slow, uncertain process, following decades of silence in the mountains. While a myth can destroy a species quickly, restoring the balance takes decades. Today, hundreds of breeding pairs are back in the sky, closing the loop of the alpine food web. Consider the falling skeleton again, but viewed through the lens of efficiency rather than fear. This bird represents the final, patient step that closes the circle of life. It ensures that even the skeletons of the dead feed the next generation. The most feared face in the mountains was never a threat, but a quiet, careful keeper of the ecosystem. We very nearly lost this efficient recycler because we couldn't look past the color of its feathers. If this look into the high places moved you, consider subscribing and leaving a comment to tell us which misunderstood creature you'd like to meet next. The wild world is full of these shadows. It's time we finally learned what they're trying to tell us.